everybody would come in and have a seat, that would be great. I hope we've had a chance to enjoy some of the Syrian mint tea that Sarah has brought for you, and if not, there's more over on the table. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Cindy Nottage. Okay? A group of us got together from our EFM alumni group after seeing the picture of the young Syrian boy in the red shirt. His name is Alan Kurdi, and we were all touched by that. And then the bishop at our service at the anniversary spoke about that as well. We decided we wanted to do something. And so this forum is the beginning of that endeavor, or as we hope, a ministry that will go further. There is a team of us, and I'm going to introduce them right now. Carol Allard is sitting at that table. We should have some big. Patty Buck is back there. Let's see, who else? I'm missing my group. Judy and Jane cannot be at the same table, I'm sorry, and David. They're all at the same table. Wrong. Now we have two at the same table. Look at Judy and David, and Sarah is doing the tea right now. Did I miss? And Helen was very instrumental yesterday, putting all the wonderful things together that are in the back there and on your tables. We also have Syrian treats on your table that came from a bakery in Concord. The young man who runs that bakery, his name is Ahmad Asa. He is a refugee from Syria. He came over 2 years ago. He's married to a woman who is from Manchester. And so when the fighting broke out, he and his wife had to leave. So enjoy these wonderful treats. They are delicious. Or take one home with you if you can't eat it right now. There's some interesting discussion questions on your table. Some of you had a chance to look at them. But it was just kind of to bring you in closer to what's going on in Syria, to give you a little more information. So, as we usually do in Forum, we're going to start with prayer. On your table, you have prayer sheets. And Carol Allard is going to lead the opening prayer. Did everyone find those sheets?
Good morning. On your tables are sheets with prayers, and you'll see the opening prayer. We'll say that together. Our heart is comforted in its awareness of you, soul within our soul, life within all life. Our heart is comforted in remembering you, giver of this day, gift of every moment. May we be bearers of comfort. May we be strong in our soul, to cry at the wrongs of the nations, to weep at the bleeding earth, to mourn with those who mourn in this night, in the loss of life and lands, in the loss of dreams and hope. May we be strong in our souls this night or day. Amen.
All right. Mark had sent out the link to a short video that came from our previous presiding bishop, now previous, because we have a new one. And so we thought we would start the forum by showing that video. And I know Mark's going to work his magic, and it's going to work. The joys of technology. Maybe not.
Take the cover off.
Oh, the cover. For those of us who are technologically challenged, Mark did that on purpose.
I'm going to grab it.
Robbie,
I'm going to start it over. We're going to turn some lights off. It's a short one, so we can get this right.
We will.
has stepped forward so robustly. Many other nations have been less welcoming and less willing thus far to get involved. The United States has made a very small response. We're going to take 15,000 more refugees next year and a further 15,000 above that the year after. That's a drop in the bucket. Syrian refugees in particular, other refugees from the Middle East, are in need of homes and resettlement. They're not likely to be able to go home for some time to come. But added to that, we still have refugees from Iraq, from Lebanon. We have refugees from Sudan and Nigeria. And in our own hemisphere, we have refugees from Central America who tend to be children and mothers fleeing violence in their homelands. And it's become apparent in recent days that the U.S. government is encouraging Mexico to keep them away from our common border. We need to find a more humane response than that. These people are dying, and many of them are children. The response that's needed is urgent, and Americans in particular need to remember that we are a nation of immigrants. We have all come from somewhere else. We will not know the fullness of the reign of God if we decide that some people don't deserve to sit at the table. God's table is for all humanity, and who are we to keep separating?
Thank you for doing that, Mark. All right, we can do lights again if we have a light minister here. Thanks, Eric. So that's a compelling message. And I know you're all here today, and I thank you all for coming because something has drawn you to this crisis. There are 4 things that the presiding bishop, or former presiding bishop, talked about after, in some writings afterwards, 4 different ways that people can do something. And they are, and I need to look at them. One is learning about what's going on in the world. And you have wonderful information on your tables in the back about the Syrian crisis. So reading more, going to websites, finding out what is really going on. And the things on your table, giving you some good information. Advocate. That means if this is something that is really calling you, get in touch with your political leaders and tell them what you would like to see happen. Another way that you can help. Also, awareness. Spread the word within your communities, within your families. Let them know what is happening and what can happen. And the 4th one is act. And that's what our group is here to talk to you about today. Because we think that after having talked to my friend, who is hiding somewhere, oh, he's in the back. I'll introduce him in a minute, Robert Azzi. He came to talk to our group, and we have been thinking about a 2-phase ministry as a possibility for Christ Church and for Exeter and for within New Hampshire. And that would be bringing students in who need to go to school and to go to our local schools, and also resettling families. So, we have in the back, and maybe a couple of my white hope ribbon volunteers could go to the back and pass out the inventories. I've put together, or we've actually put together in talking, put together an inventory of things that people could possibly do if you're interested in this ministry. And I thought we would look at those now, or while Robert is speaking, and Mark will also be speaking, and see if there's something that calls you as you look at this list. It'll give you some ideas. There's a place for other as well. There is no pressure for you to sign your name or to sign up, but there may be something that you are interested in. We've actually gotten 2 responses from people already. One is a parish member and one is a non-parish member who want to be involved in this ministry in some way. One who's already stepped forward and said she and her family would be interested in hosting a student. So that has come just from the information that has gone out through our parish newsletter. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our guest speaker today, one of our guest speakers. Robert Azzi, who is a photographer, a journalist, and an activist. I'm not sure he would like me to use that term, but I think it is an appropriate term for what he does. And he acts. He acts on his passions. So he's going to talk to you about a little bit of the philosophy behind all of this, the refugee resettlement and students, and then he's going to give you good information about the part that he's been intricately involved in, which is the students coming into our area back in the Bosnian crisis. So, and believe me, he is our go-to man here. So Robert, if you would come up. Thank you for being here this morning.
Good? Thank you. All right. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me. I don't mind activists. Actually, I could be called a progressive activist. I've been called other things in the Portsmouth Herald, some of you haven't seen that. And I welcome all of that as well. Because if people are reading and responding, that means they're thinking about it. So that's the first step. 22 years ago actually, in November, so the first of what would turn out to be 85 Bosnian students in America arrived in Exeter. It came about, and in Exeter we ended up with 12 students. But it was a response to my daughter watching Elie Wiesel dedicate the Holocaust Museum in April of that year, 1993. And we had been talking about the Holocaust that had taken place in World War II, but we were also talking about the war that was taking place in the former Yugoslavia. And so Imam said, Baba, would there be a Holocaust museum for the Muslims of Bosnia someday? Well, it's pretty tough stuff from an 8-year-old. So we mobilized some friends and we thought about what we could do, and we decided that lots of people were dealing with refugee families, which is pretty much what a lot of people are thinking about here. But what I wanted to do and found support for was that one of the components of ethnic cleansing and genocide is not just to kill people, but to wipe out all signs of their cultural and historical and traditional patrimony. And so the way to resist that would be to bring students who could keep that tradition alive. In the case of Bosnia, we brought, but not exclusively, Muslim students from Bosnia and Herzegovina, but there were some from mixed families, Christian and Muslim, some secular families. But they were also pretty committed to being Bosnians. And I think, and you'll hear from one of the host families this morning, it was a pretty successful program. It was successful on two grounds. Number one, we were able to save these students, most of whom have returned to Bosnia and are working as diplomats, as university professors. They're high-tech startups, and they're committed to rebuilding their country. The other part of it is that all the students, I ran into one on Lincoln Street the other day, and the guy said, "Are you Mr. Ashley that brought those Bosnian students in?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, I graduated in their class at Exeter High School back in '95. He said, "I never even knew Bosnia existed until they came into my classroom." You know, and so there was a sense of expansion of our children's globe, of our world, and what it means to be a global citizen today. And being a global citizen doesn't mean that somebody in Brentwood knows somebody in Durham. Although when many of us are growing up, that's pretty much what our world was. Right now, what it really means is to be active in saving a world that is coming apart in places. We can't save every place, but there's something we can do because we're interested in education. As people of faith, we understand that until everyone is taken care of, no one is taken care of. And when we know about injustice, we become complicit in it if we don't act on it. I want to bring more Syrian students here. I think in this case, we can't put them all in the Exeter Public School because I don't think Exeter Public School and a lot of their families would support that. I think I'm going to distribute them, I think, in the Seacoast and beyond. And so, but we're looking for families, and I want Exeter, because we were at the beginning of the Bosnian movement, I want Exeter to be the beginning of the Syrian movement. I want families who can take in students. If you can't take in a student, I want families who can say, we can be the weekend uncles and aunts to give a break to the family that is taking a student. I want families that can say, I can take them to the mall. I need families that say, I can take them to worship services if they want to go on their high holidays in Dover. I need families who can just say, we're going to love these kids and we're going to take care of them, whether they're Muslim or Alawite or Sunni or Shia or Circassians or Druze or Armenian Orthodox or Armenian Protestant, whatever they are, we're going to love them because they're part of our family. And so I think Exeter has shown in 1993, 94, and 95, and I think the Bosnian kids, I mean, I was asking one of them, Yasminka, who came back this summer with her family, and I told Yasminka what we were doing, and she said, we'll write a letter. You know, we who came before will write a letter to the Newhouse families telling them what we went through. And we will share what we went through. Cut me off when I'm running out of time, by the way. I'll just keep on forever. And we will share with the host families what our experiences were. You know, sometimes we got too much love, sometimes we didn't get enough love. So, you know, and there were these things that are cultural. And at the end, what happens are two things, I think. Number one, a part of the world that has become very suspicious and leery of the United States gets an insight into what we are really made of. We're responsible in part for the Syrians and the Afghans and the Iraqis and the Jordanians and Lebanese and all of these people flowing to other countries. You know, we ignored Colin Powell's rule, the Pottery Barn rules. We broke it, we own it. We broke it and we refused ownership of what happened in the Middle East, particularly in Iraq. And we can't say this is happening and it has nothing to do with us. If we voted in these elections, if we supported our government, which we should have done, once the commitments were made, we are in part responsible for what these people are going through. And this is part of our way to say, we made a mistake, and we're going to try and fix this and heal your country. The other thing is that for our kids, and for our veterans, and for our families, we get an insight into cultures that have been demonized now, at least since 9/11. You know, the first Muslims came to America actually in the 17th century as slaves. You know, about 20% of the first slaves in this country were Muslim. But as far as most people are concerned, Muslims appeared like Topsy on September 11th, 2001. You know, because they'd been so well assimilated, and then all of a sudden they became demonized. And just be glad we're not in Iowa, where Republicans who are voting in the caucus say that 73% of them say that a Muslim can't be president. Of whom 30% believe that Islam should be banned as a religion in this country. We in part need these sojourners. We need the Syrian women. We need them to help us understand what Islam is about, what the globe is about, and where our weaknesses are. They need to help us heal. Help us heal the wounds and the anger that we've been experiencing all of this time. We've had this sort of the world against us in some ways, and we're uncomfortable with it because we know that's not quite right. So bringing these kids into our life, I think, will help all of us heal.
Robert, would you tell just a little bit about how these kids will be, what they need to have in order to come here?
Sure. I have friends, including my daughter, who got the Bosnian project started, working in Germany and in Lebanon in particular, and a little bit in Jordan, identifying young Syrians right now. They have to be fluent. not as fluent as some of our high school kids are, in English. They're going to be able to do the classwork. I mean, they're all going to need tutors. If any of you can do tutoring, retired teachers, present teachers. This isn't an ESL program. This is a program where kids who can do work in English come to do work in English, and they go on to university, and we found universities all responsive to these kids, and they will go on to school. I have now established contacts in the State Department. We're trying to be able to expedite, once we have a package of students and we know where they're going, we hope to be able to expedite these to the State Department. Family resettlement takes a lot longer than students because they come on a different kind of visa. So we need to be able, if we get the students going, I think that will also help in the resettlement of families, because the families can help be the cultural anchors for those students as they're located around the state. But the students, and I have people from the American University of Beirut, I have my daughter, I have people from the American Consulate in Vienna, who helped with the first mission. They're all identifying students. Some students, there was one student we were talking about last week actually, who was a whiz, quadrilingual, is that what we call it? Armenian, English, French, and Arabic, but lost their travel documents in the course of trying to get from Aleppo to Germany. That student can't come. At least there's no way we can create documents. So there are all these different kinds of cutoffs. Can they do the work? Do they have documents? Is their family willing to sign off? Do they have a family? You know, and what's the responsibility to us, to those families that we're sort of wrenching their children away? And those children are good. I mean, the parents are without hesitation saying, our daughters, our sons, you know, take them please, because we don't know what their future is.
Thank you. And we're going to hold for questions until after Mark has spoken, and then we can ask questions about both things. If that's straight, Judy is going to say something about her experience as a host. Something.
Sit up there, or?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, you got to do it.
Do this.
Thank you, Robert.
What's the special trick to this?
Just hold the base at the bottom.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it.
Let's see, okay. Well, as Robert said, about 22 years ago, his daughter started him on a journey of bringing the Bosnian students, and that involved me. One Sunday morning, I was in church, and one of our parishioners stood up, and she had already been talking with Robert, and she spoke and asked if anyone would be interested in being part of this hosting program. And I just knew in my heart that there was something there that had to be considered, but I also knew it wasn't just my decision. I had a family, a husband, and 3 children who also had to be considered. So I took it to them, and we discussed it. Our oldest daughter was 16. She was all for it immediately. My son was 12, and my youngest daughter, I think, was 9-ish. They didn't really care. They didn't really know that much about what it was going to mean or impact for them, so they had no reason to object. So we decided to go forward, and we were involved with that first year of students. However, at the very last minute, I don't know if you remember this, Robert, but at the very last minute, our student was diagnosed with a very serious illness and couldn't come. So we did not have a student that first year. But we were assured that there would be more coming, and there were. As Robert told you, quite a few. And I think the second year, there were, I think, a total of 12 that year. So our student was Irma. She was a little older than our teenage daughter. They would have to share a room, which was a new experience for each one of them, because Irma was an only child, and our daughter Kara had always had her own room. So that was a challenge, which they dealt with quite well at first, but as the year went on, as you can imagine, teenage girls, and Irma was several years older. She turned 19, I believe, during that year. She had actually finished high school, but in order to go into college here in the United States, she was required to complete a full year of high school. So she was at the senior level in our high school. One of our fondest memories at the beginning was, as Robert said, they may need tutors at times. She was in an American history class trying to understand the Federalist Papers. It may have been a while since any of you have read the Federalist Papers. It was for us. And she was pretty fluent in her English, but understanding that version of English was very challenging for all of us, but it was a good bonding experience. This was a life-changing experience, of course, as you would assume. And it was life-changing for her, which was our driving reason for wanting to be involved. We knew very little about Bosnia until this subject came up, but what we did know was horrifying. The genocide was horrifying, and to think that we might be able to have just a very small impact with one human being was quite powerful. And it really did feel like a calling to take that on. So it was a wonderful year. My 12-year-old son loved Irma because she laughed at all his jokes. What more could a 12-year-old boy hope for? His older sister certainly didn't laugh at all his jokes, or even his parents. But she always did. She was very precious. She thought he was delightful. And so it was a wonderful year. It was not an easy year. There were many, many challenges, a lot of them cultural. One of the frustrations of the students was that they lived very independently in the communist-controlled government of Yugoslavia, which was what she had grown up with before the dictator there died and the resulting breakup of the countries. And so they were allowed to travel across the country very easily, hop on a train and go down to the shore, to the resorts. And at one point I remember several of them wanted to go out to the Midwest, hop on a train and go to the Midwest. And we host parents were horrified and said, no, we can't let you do that, it would not be safe. They didn't quite understand that. So there are challenges, absolute challenges. But I would say if you feel in any of the conversation here this morning, if you feel that tugging, pay attention to it. Lay it before God and consider it prayerfully and let God guide you as to what you might feel drawn to do for, particularly we're looking at Syrian refugees at this point, but this is a ministry that could certainly grow and include refugees from many different places around the world. And Robert spoke very well about our call in our ministry, whether you want to consider it your ministry to God or a political activist kind of ministry. It's out there, and prayerfully consider what your part in that might possibly be. I just want to read an excerpt from a wonderful poem by a Somali poet. I'm just going to read the end of it. It speaks very powerfully about the refugee situation. I want to go home, but home is the mouth of a shark. Home is the barrel of the gun. And no one would leave home unless home chased you to the shore, unless home told you to quicken your legs, leave your clothes behind, crawl through the desert, wade through the oceans, drown, save, be hungry, beg, forget pride. Your survival is more important. No one leaves home unless home is a sweaty voice in your ear saying, leave, run away from me now. I don't know what I've become, but I know that anywhere is safer than here.
Thank you, Judy. And that poem, it's a much longer poem. If anyone's really interested in it, on that sheet that you have, if you would like to have that emailed to you with a PDF, or we can post it on the website, or we'll do something with it. Anyway, it's beautiful. Thank you. And now, our other guest speaker is Mark. He's not a guest, really. Thank you, Mark.
The second Sunday after Christmas, when some of us have not yet come back to church, we sometimes miss hearing the story of the Holy Family escaping Bethlehem. Jesus, still an infant, with Mary and Joseph, they had to flee for their lives. Herod had sought to kill all male children of a certain age. And so for many of us, for Christians, Jesus is the Son of God, but also has this experience of being a refugee. It was very important in that time that the Savior would come out of Egypt, and that is part of the narrative of our story. Here at Christ Church, we have identified part of our vision, our mission, to serve both the local and global community. And it's true that it is hard, or if not impossible, to disconnect the one from the other. We live in a globalized world. Everything we buy, everything we do really is all interconnected. So I never see conversations like this as taking away from something. I think this is something that adds to what we are and who we can become to be. For me, I've always had a passion, as some of you may know my own story, for refugees, and I became involved back in 1995 in a formal way with refugees from Cuba. Now, Cuban refugees, as you may know, have always had special status because of the Cold War politics. If you would arrive, a Cuban would arrive and just set one foot on our shores, that Cuban would be welcomed if they could make it through the waters, where the same person from Haiti or another country would be turned back to their country. So that having been said, it is, for the last 50 years or so, it has been very brutal for Cubans, because unlike Central America, where you can walk, though dangerous, there's only one way to flee an island, and that is by water. And thousands and thousands of people have died in those waters between Cuba and Florida. So in 1995, we became, at St. Luke's in South Glastonbury, Connecticut, an official sponsor of a first of 3 Cuban families. Back then, I have a feeling it's really changed since post 9/11 in terms of requirements, but we had to sign some affidavits of support. So we worked with Episcopal Migration Ministry, who were the State Department representatives. We said that we would support these families for the first 6 months, and that is what we did. We found an old home in Glastonbury, which is a suburb of Hartford, and we fixed it up, we painted it. It was probably the most unifying experience that small, sort of sleepy Yankee parish had in a very long time. My greatest sense of joy was to see the just retired CEO of Travelers Insurance Company, worth millions of dollars, working alongside of us painting this house. And he said this is the first thing he had gotten charged up about in a very long time, and it brought people out of the woodwork. We were able to sponsor these families, they stayed in the Hartford area, and now one of them is the head of the health department in the city of Hartford. And so they stayed, and we had 2 families after that. If this parish, and I know Helen has had some experience as well with all of this, if we do decide to do something after the student experience or alongside with it, we can partner with Exeter Care Network, which is the former Lutheran social service entity. That is the official partner for the Diocese of New Hampshire. There's an office in Concord, and they are the official recipient of refugees in the state of New Hampshire. So that is out there. And a lot of it is really helping, as has been referred to, helping these families navigate the cultural differences. You do hear these stories about how they would be, some families would have a hard time adjusting to the diet and cooking and all of those things. So again, I echo what you said, that this really touches your heart. It is easy to find oneself feeling helpless in this global, biblical almost catastrophe, but we may be able to find a small way and connect. So it can be done, and it can make a big difference in the life of a parish community. So thank you.
You may want to stay up here for
Okay.
questions, and
Right.
Robert, you may need to come up here to answer some questions too, which is great. One of the important pieces that we're talking about is that Well, I'll tell you that for sure. From what I heard from Robert is that the apartments would be provided. We probably wouldn't be doing a house, but who knows what it would look like. So anyway, I'm going to, I think for this, Dominic, we're going to need to have the microphone go to the people who are asking the questions as well.
Okay.
Do we?
Sure.
Okay, so, any questions for either Mark or Robert or Helen, who has, oh, thank you.
It's all about the base.
Crackling, okay. And Helen, who has participated in relocating families, and Judy also. So, questions, thoughts, ideas? No way. Okay.
What kind of timing, Robert, are you looking at with the students that you have identified?
Okay, so the question's about timing for the students.
I'm hoping for February. I'm hoping I can move to get the first students here. Maybe not all that I want from Hampshire. And part of that is really political as well, because that's also primary season in New Hampshire. And I want everyone to see what New Hampshire is doing in the hope that there could be some synergy created and other communities reading about it or seeing it can pick it up and take it into their own communities. So I'm looking for February for the first handful.
Is there any funding necessary at this stage?
No, I don't want your money yet. Yeah. I mean, we're going to need some help locally, certainly. One of the host families from Exeter of 22 years ago was really good at getting clothing and backpacks and all that stuff for the students, and they've offered to do that again for this time. There are going to be all these kinds of local expenses, and I don't want families who want to take students in but maybe not have all the resources of other families to think that they can't do it. So we want a network of people who can help out families who need some help in having, I mean, you're taking in another kid, and you're taking in a teenager, and, I don't know that I would do it again, but I would. So.
Hi. I don't have a big enough home to take somebody in, but I would be interested to be like a big sister or a mentor, that kind of thing. Is that a possibility?
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. It's exactly what we need. I could have a kid and say, listen, I've got a family issue. I've got to go away for the whole day. It's a weekend. Can you take Layla? I mean, the girl who was with us named Layla. Can you take Layla for the day, or whatever, or can you pick her up from school because we have a conflict or something? So we need backup people. We need aunts and uncles, basically.
Okay. Good.
Has anybody made contact with any of the area high schools to let them know this is in the works?
That's my next step, actually. I've spoken to a couple of people in local government, and I actually have spoken to some people that were in the school district at the time we did the Bosnians, just sort of working on a little bit of a strategy. It wasn't easy. Even in '93, there were people who called the school district and say, why are you giving free lunches to these kids? And so we lost all the free lunches at the school for a while. I had to come up with some funding to pay for school lunches for, 12 kids in the Exeter school program. I know it's going to be more difficult now because there are all these people, like Ted Cruz, for example, who said, we don't want to bring in terrorists, But we'll bring in Christians, but we won't bring in terrorists. So we know there's going to be some political feedback. So I want to be able to go to the schools soon and say, I've got families, I've got support, I've got a visa process. What do we need to do to bring the community at large? And make them, it's not something I want to impose on a community. It's something I want the community to feel that they're part of, that this becomes a community invitation to young Syrians to come here and study, because that's what we do really well in Exeter, is educate our kids.
Yeah, you talked about doing it statewide or having some, did you? some of the students go to other parts of the state? Or
Yes.
How will you do that?
Well, actually, I was really lucky. Your Bishop Roth invited me to speak last month at a clergy meeting, a retreat. And so I spoke basically about what I spoke this morning. And many of the communities, the larger parishes, especially in the state, expressed an interest in doing what we're talking about doing here today. So hopefully in Manchester, in Peterborough, in Keene, in Concord, in Hanover, for example, you know, we can have, because we want to have some common threads that connect these kids. If we just have them isolated with no other connection, no way to bring them together, then we risk really having to become alienated in their communities. So we want to be able to do that. So the Episcopal Church and the bishop has been really supportive of this and hoping we can make this. It came about, I'm going to take a second here. It came about in part because of Pope Francis's call that every parish and monastery in Europe should take a Syrian family. And it was calculated then that if people acted on it, which they haven't, some have, but most haven't, especially in Eastern Europe, that could absorb between 380 and 450,000 Syrians. So there are ways of dispersing these communities so there's not a disparate impact in any one community, and yet be able to keep them connected through some common thread. Yes?
If we have a friend or something that is not in the church but might be interested in helping, is that okay to get?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're going to have to deal with Unitarians and Muslims and Catholics, everybody else here. And don't underestimate, by the way, what how young people will respond to this. The girl that was in our house, Layla Trzemehich from Sarajevo, there was press involved in this, and there was a piece about what we were doing in Exeter, and it sort of highlighted Layla as living with us. And it ran in the Boston Globe, and some kids at Dana Hall, which is a private boarding school, girls' private, in Wellesley, Mass, saw it, and they raised their student gift to the school to be a scholarship for Layla, and challenged Dana Hall to come up with matching funds for a scholarship, and they ended up educating Layla for 2 years. We lost her, but Dana Hall got her for 2 years on a full ride, and that was generated not because of anything any adult did, but because the students recognized what was happening, and they were able to contextualize it within their own experience. Also, Maya Burbage, who came in Exeter, was a great basketball player on the girls' basketball team. Yes,
what are the ages of the kids that would be?
high school age, basically. Although sometimes it runs a little bit older, depending on how much high school they've lost. The one girl, Elisa, who had been interned in the Serbian internment camp for Bosnians at Banja Luka, graduated Exeter High School just before her 21st birthday. So, there's going to be some range, but there won't be anyone younger than 9th grade.
And do they have contact with their families still?
It depends where their family is. I don't know if some of you have seen the talk about how come all of these young people are going, all those young men and their people are going to Germany and so on. In part, that's because the older generations who are less mobile and can't move and see no hope for themselves are actually pooling their resources and getting their younger kids out. And we are, in fact, going to hopefully educate the children of that younger generation that's been released by their grandfathers and grandmothers, to go out and try to start a life somewhere else. Yes, sir.
Is there any hope that hundreds and thousands of refugees will ever go back home?
If they're refugees, they would probably stay here and be welcome here. But these students are not coming on refugee visas. They're coming as F1 student visas. So they don't get to stay. unless they fall in love and marry one of our wonderful American kids. And who knows, they may end up being Ahmed Isa making sweets up in Concord. But the whole idea of refugee programs, it's a resettlement, and they get to stay unless they voluntarily choose to go home or they break the laws in some way. But the students, just to be really clear, the students are not refugees. They don't get to come here and then get to stay and without any sort of legal consequences.
As I understood it from what you said earlier, part of the impetus is to have students educated in the American system become successful engineers, doctors, whatever, and go back and help build up Syria after the current situation is diffused or somehow resolved. And that to me would be a bigger benefit and motivation for us, is not to have them come here and help to build us up even more, but to diffuse the wealth, if you will, and strengthen a country that will definitely need strengthening at that point.
Oh, I agree. I mean, the stories come about if you use an iPhone, the iPhone, Steve Jobs, his father, was a Syrian student who came to the United States to do graduate work. Due to the objections of his girlfriend's parents, they were never able to marry, and he ended up being adopted and living with another family. But there's a lot of this interchange already happening. There have been Syrians in this country since the early 19th century. So we have a history with them. And the other part is, when the Arab League was put together in the mid-1940s, roughly 75% of the heads of state, prime ministers who attended that conference were US educated, either in this country or by American educational institutions in the Middle East, the American University of Beirut, Robert College in Istanbul, the American University in Basra, Iraq, AUC. So there's a basis there. They know us, and they know us primarily through education. Now they know us through war. But it gives us also a chance to reconnect on the things that they initially got to know us through. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Mark hasn't had any questions yet. Anyone have any for him? He says no. Actually, hold it at the bottom, Cindy. One of the things, thinking about if we have students coming in first, and then we're able to bring in a refugee family or more than one, that gives a community for those students. That gives them a basis of adult Syrians also to bond with. On your table, what you got was says Syrian, it has a map up on the right-hand corner. Let me just go over some of those things that are possibilities. And Robert's already mentioned one that I hadn't put down there at all that we didn't think about, was tutoring. Does anyone not have that sheet, need one of those? Okay. This is my important piece with you today. One of the things that we would love to have is a couple, 2 or 3 or 4 more people who are willing to serve on the organizing team. And that would just be working together to connect with Robert, to connect with the agencies, to connect with the church, to connect with outside the church. So if you're interested in doing that, that's the very first thing at the top there. Ministry organizing team, you could check that off. Ecumenical and community outreach. We don't see this as being Christ Church only. We see this as being spread. And Lauren, my friend from Dover, who is not part of this parish, and she's actually of Jewish heritage, is here today to find out more about that. So to spread this beyond ecumenical and community outreach. And parish education. Maybe you want to do a little bit more in helping to educate the parish about this. The student initiative. Okay, so the whole parish, we would certainly be behind sponsoring a student or more than one student, but we would need to have host families. We would need to, what Fran had talked about, acting as an aunt or an uncle to support the host family, planning social and educational events, food for gatherings, transportation. There are lots of others that we hadn't even thought of, but you might think of something else, and tutoring was one that hadn't come up on here. And then for the family relocation initiative, again, the parish would be behind that in sponsoring a family or more than one, and helping to locate housing. You might be able to do that, connecting the family with community resources, the health care, job placement, community activities, lots of different things that, again, will come up. Possibly financial help, locate or donate goods, furniture, linens, kitchen supplies, clothing, etc. Providing services, transportation, child care. Plan or participate in social activities for the family and others, things I haven't even talked about. So lots of ways that you could get interested. As Judy said, if something calls you, you just check that. That doesn't mean you're committing, you're not signing on for life, okay? It's just showing us what interest there is in the parish for doing this. If there's enough interest for us to continue and move forward with these initiatives, that's what we're looking for today. And so if you wouldn't mind putting your name and your email and your phone number up there, also put the town you come from, because that makes a difference as well, certainly with host families and schools where kids would be. So, any questions about that?
Cindy?
Yes.
Just a more general question. As one of the webmasters for the church website,
Yes.
I don't know if Sarah Watts has already done this or not, but I'd be happy to put up a page under ministries for Syrian refugees. If you can send me material to put there, and I could put up forms like this, links to forms. So send me the material.
Okay, Paul.
I'll do something on the website to
Thank
help
you.
spread this word.
That would be excellent. Maybe we need to fill out a ministry form. We're okay without that. Okay, it's rolling.
But send me the text to
Paul.
go on a page. You know what a web page looks like. Tell me what to say.
Yeah.
If you have pictures, send me some pictures.
Wonderful.
And then and also send me PDF documents or Word documents that I can post as links for people to download.
That is excellent. If you would make a note of some of those things on your sheet or email me or whatever to remind me. And Judy's been writing madly, so that'd be great. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Any other questions, ideas? Okay, we have, yes, Sarah.
I would just speak just for a second about what some of the resources are. One of the papers, the second, it's got some resources to check into. The 2 million miles, that name comes from the number of miles that refugees have walked. If you combine all the refugees who are fleeing, that resource is an interactive video resource where you become the refugee and can click on different choices at different stages of your journey and see what might result from that choice. It's a very good way to immerse yourself in some things that, to me, it never occurred to me these things would even come up. I travel a lot, and you get on a plane or a bus, and you just go where you go, and it's not that way for these people, and so it's a really good resource. I'd encourage you to experience that. I did forget to put on here that there is a Nightline video? Is that Nightline? It's not on here, but I'm sure you can Google it, a YouTube video of Robert's experience with the Bosnian students, and I'd encourage you to look at that. Nightline also did a piece on Ed McNeil back when we did the refugee resettlement here at the church, but I don't know if that one's available on she has it on a videotape, but in the future we may see that here. And a lot of what Helen and Ed did in the past is up here, so we have a strong history of this parish and Christ Church did through the leadership and guidance of Ed and Helen. We had a house here that we fixed up and housed, so we have a really strong history of this. This wouldn't be something new for us. We could draw on a lot of past experience if we did this.
Thank you, Sarah. I forgot you had done those resources, so thank you for bringing that to people's attention. And again, Helen has lots of information that she can share if people have questions about that. If a couple of my people would grab the final, there's another prayer on the back for Syrian. I don't think we have that. We're going to have 2 ending prayers now. And so this one is specific to Syria, and we thought that it would be a nice one for you to take home, and you might be able to pray as you're thinking about the people that we are wanting to bring here in different ways.
Everyone have a copy of the Episcopal Migration Ministries prayer for Syria. Join me. God, our strength and our Redeemer,
we ask for your loving presence and for your peace to be with the people of Syria, of all religious traditions and of none. Be with those in positions of leadership, that their decisions may hasten peace and bring an end to violence. Be with those who are in fear for their safety and their lives. Be with those who have lost their homes, livelihoods, and loved ones. Give them strength and courage. And be with us as we listen and discern your call to us. Equip us and empower us to be witnesses to your love, as advocates and servants, as ministers of welcome and of hope for Syrians and all those displaced by war and violence. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
And on the sheet that says closing prayer at the bottom, we'll say together,
Peace where there is war, healing where there is hurt, memory where we have forgotten the other, vision where there is silence, light where there is madness, sight where we are blind to each other, comfort where there is sorrow, tears where there is sadness, laughter where we have missed life's joy, laughter when we remember this joy.
Amen.
So thank you all so much. There are more wonderful pastries there. I wish you would take some home for your families and for yourselves and wrap them in a napkin. And if you would leave your sheet on the back table there, those of you who filled one out, that will give us a better idea of where we want to go and what we want to do. Mark, do you have anything to say?
No, I just want to thank Robert again for coming. Thank you all for doing what you're doing. Great, thank you.
Thank you, Robert.